Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into the world of flirting and attraction, specifically looking at some material you provided from David DeAngelo.
That's right.
And our mission here really is to pull out the main ideas, especially around this concept he calls cocky and funny flirting.
Mm-hmm.
We want to figure out, what it actually is, why he claims it works for sparking attraction, and maybe how these ideas show up in social dynamics.
Exactly. And looking through the sources, the big theme seems to be about communicating this strong sense of self-worth, like believing in your own attractiveness right from the start. It's about setting a particular tone.
Okay, let's unpack that because the material, it starts by tackling something DeAngelo sees as a problem,
Yeah.
being too nice. He actually argues that can backfire. Why is that, according to him?
Well, it's interesting. The idea presented is that being overly nice, it can get read as looking for approval, constantly trying to please someone.
Hmm.
It kind of signals maybe a lack of self-confidence or even like a fear of rejection.
Which aren't typically seen as attractive qualities.
Right. The thinking is people are drawn to those who seem to have their own value, not someone constantly needing validation from others.
Okay, so that brings us to cocky and funny. This is framed as the alternative.
Right.
How does DeAngelo actually define it? What is it?
He calls it adult verbal play. Think lighthearted teasing, banter, a generally confident but funny way of talking. It's presented as a method to create sexual tension and attraction early on.
Kind of skipping the super cautious, agreeable stage.
Exactly, bypassing that.
And the sources really push for starting this dynamic early, right? It's not like a later stage thing.
Yeah, that's crucial. They really stress establishing this playful, confident vibe right away. The idea is you signal your interest and your self-assurance, but like in a non-needy way from the very beginning.
Okay, let's get into some examples because that's where it clicks.
Yeah.
The one that jumped out at me was this really fast escalation involving a marriage proposal. Can you walk us through that one?
Yeah, that one's pretty illustrative. It's the suddenness, right? Jumping to something serious like marriage, but delivered with obvious humor and this like self-serving twist. I need a woman with money.
Right.
It's the surprise, the playful absurdity. That's the cocky and funny thing. And then the quick breakup when the condition isn't met, the stay-at-home husband bit just doubles down on the lighthearted, non-serious feel.
Definitely memorable.
Mm-hmm.
Another one was the breaking up with you line, but for something tiny, like a restaurant being out of an item. How does that fit?
That's another good one. Taking something mundane, totally every day, and having this exaggerated, playful reaction, saying, okay, this isn't working out. I'm breaking up with you over a menu item.
Yeah.
It's unexpected again. It shows you don't take yourself or the little things too seriously. You're comfortable with banter.
Okay. And what about the scenario where, say, a woman mentions liking tall guys, but the guy she's talking to isn't tall? How does DeAngelo suggest handling that CNF style?
The material gives a few ways in. One is addressing it first, maybe even before she says anything, like, well, you're taller than me. I'm over it. Are you yet?
Okay. Preemptive.
Yeah, shows self-awareness, confidence, and you just playfully dismiss the issue. Another way is to kind of turn it back on her humorously, maybe joke about how rare her height is or something.
So the common thread is not being defensive.
Exactly. Not getting hung up on perceived flaws.
Right. That lack of concern seems key. There are also examples of just generally busting on someone playfully, slightly arrogantly, even about stuff like status, but always as a joke. What's the logic there?
Yeah, making lighthearted, teasing comments, sometimes with that touch of playful arrogance, but crucially, always wrapped in humor. Joking about wearing secondhand clothes or suggesting they might be secretly homeless.
Wow. Okay.
The intent isn't genuine malice, obviously. It's about creating this playful challenge. The source argues it generates attraction by showing you're not needy, you're comfortable with yourself. The humor is the safety net, showing it's all in fun.
And this ties into a comment mentioned from a woman about accidental attraction. What was her take on why this CNF style might work better than just being nice?
Her perspective basically backs up the core idea. She says she finds guys who are cocky and funny more attractive than the ones who are super agreeable, trying too hard for approval.
So it adds weight to the idea that the confidence, the playful challenge is just inherently more appealing somehow.
That's the argument presented, yes.
There was also specific advice about suggesting a woman cancel boring plans. What was the important nuance there?
Right. The advice is to playfully imply that, hanging out with you would be way better than whatever else she has planned. Maybe even jokingly tell her to cancel.
Huh.
But, and this is key, don't push it if she says no or resists. If you keep pushing, it stops being playful and starts looking insecure or demanding. That kills the vibe.
So keep it light.
Exactly.
Interestingly, the source also includes this comment, saying women will actually be glad if men learn how to succeed at dating. What's the thinking there?
It kind of hints at this potential frustration women might feel with guys who are maybe too passive or just don't know how to create that engaging, attractive interaction. The idea is that women appreciate it when men can take the lead, make it fun, create that dynamic connection. It suggests it makes the whole dating thing better for them, too.
Another important distinction made was that cocky and funny isn't about being fake. It's about expressing your real self, just unapologetically. How does that work?
Yeah, that's a vital point. The source insists it's not about putting on an act. It's about having the self-assurance to just be yourself, quirks and all, without constantly needing that external okay.
So if you're generating attraction with the confidence and playfulness,
Then the minor stuff, even things you might think are uncool about yourself, they matter less. That's the idea. Attraction overrides the small stuff.
and there was that specific response to insecure comments, well, you like me. Isn't that enough? What's the logic behind that reply?
That response, it directly tackles the insecurity, but playfully and confidently. It subtly shifts focus back to her interest and implies your high self-esteem. You're not getting sucked into reassuring her or seeking her approval.
Keeps that confident, slightly challenging dynamic going.
Precisely.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly. Beyond words, the sources mentioned some nonverbal examples too. What were some of those?
They focused on playful exaggeration and confidently interpreting her signals. Like if she raises an eyebrow, you might do a really exaggerated one back.
All right.
Or if she touches your arm, you could look down at your arm like, whoa, what's this? Then look back at her with a knowing smile and nod like you've just realized she's totally into you.
Okay. So amplifying the playfulness without words.
Yeah, communicating confidence and that lighthearted attitude non-verbally.
And the material really hammers home that mastering this takes practice, doesn't it? It's not just a theory thing.
Absolutely. Over and over, it stresses going out and actually doing it, practicing in real situations. There's a feel, a timing. You only get that through experience.
And not getting bummed out by early failures.
Right. Don't get discouraged if some reactions aren't great. That's part of learning, or maybe it has nothing to do with you anyway. Just keep practicing.
There's even advice on handling negative comments or drama. Sometimes just ignore it. What's the reasoning?
Yeah, the idea of sometimes doing nothing when someone gets upset or dramatic and then just carrying on the conversation like it didn't happen,
Yeah.
it ties back to not being easily thrown off.
Maintaining composure.
Exactly. Not feeling like you constantly have to manage their emotions. It signals a kind of indifference to drama, avoids getting pulled into messy cycles.
Body language gets a mention too, though, briefly. What were the key takeaways there?
It focuses on signals of self-confidence. Standing tall, shoulders back, head up, moving deliberately, not rushed, making eye contact until they look away.
Standard confidence cues.
Pretty much. Presented as immediate signals of confidence and attractiveness.
Okay, let's talk techniques. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. What's the idea behind that one?
That's about creating anticipation. You make some progress, maybe a touch, maybe a kiss. Then you pull back slightly. Creates that tension, that what's next feeling.
Keeps them guessing.
Yeah, the argument is that this back and forth builds attraction and tension more than just a straight line forward.
And then never let the line go slack. What does that mean here?
It means keeping that playful tension going throughout the whole interaction, even after you've connected or gotten closer. Keep the banter up, maybe use slightly edgy humor.
So avoid just settling into comfortable silence too soon.
Basically, yeah. Keep it interesting, avoid getting too predictable or, well, slack.
Now, the sources make this pretty bold claim. Attraction is not a choice. Can you elaborate on that premise?
That's fundamental to this whole approach. The argument is attraction isn't logical. It's not a decision you make. It's an emotional response, triggered unconsciously by certain traits and actions.
Like confidence and playfulness.
Exactly. So the focus is on displaying those trigger qualities, not trying to argue someone into liking you.
And this connects to showing social status, but indirectly, using these cocky and funny methods. How does that work?
The idea is that by using CNF, the teasing, the humor, not being intimidated, you're indirectly showing what they call internally created status.
Meaning?
Meaning you seem confident enough to playfully challenge someone, you value yourself. That signals high status, which is presented as attractive. It's not about bragging about your job or car.
Gotcha. There's a brief mention of the kiss test, too. What's that about?
Simply put, it's initiating a kiss to gauge interest directly.
A direct test.
Yeah, provides immediate feedback on her attraction level and whether she's receptive to physical escalation.
What about the classic, let's just be friends
Mhm.
line? How does the source suggest handling that?
The perspective in the material is pretty blunt. It sees friends first, as usually meaning there's no initial sexual spark.
Okay, so what's the suggested response?
Playfully turn it around, say something like, she seems like she'd make a nice friend. The goal is to kind of create tension, make her maybe rethink if your interest is purely platonic after all.
Interesting. And compliments. If someone gives you one, how do they suggest responding CNF style?
Avoid just a simple thanks. Respond with playful arrogance or humor. Like the example, if she compliments your shirt, maybe say, yeah, women always try those cheesy lines on me.
Again, leaning into that persona.
Right, keeping the dynamic going.
There's a specific reaction noted as positive when someone says, shut up, but they're laughing. Why is that significant?
When they say shut up playfully while laughing at your joke, it's seen as a strong sign they're really enjoying the humor, having a strong emotional reaction.
So it's a green light.
Yeah, seen as a great moment to escalate the humor, the playfulness even more.
And even if you get genuinely annoyed by something small, the advice is still to tease, but without showing you're actually pissed off.
Right. It's about maintaining that cool, playful frame, even if you're internally a bit irritated. Don't let minor stuff break the CNF vibe. Stay consistent.
The material also touches on overcoming negative programming about approaching women. What's the gist of that?
It's about tackling those ingrained fears and negative beliefs. Fear of rejection, embarrassment. Instead of dwelling on that, reframe interactions as learning opportunities. Adopt more of an abundance mindset, like there are plenty of chances to connect.
And just doing it, taking action, trying things out. That's stressed a lot, isn't it?
Hugely. They strongly push moving past just thinking about it, get out there, interact. You learn way more by actually trying approaches and seeing what happens than just theorizing.
When it comes to getting contact info, there's a slight preference noted for email over phone. Initially, anyway. Why?
The reasoning given is that email might feel less intrusive for that first follow-up. Could lead to a better response rate than a call, maybe? And it lets you continue that CNF vibe more easily in text.
Makes sense. And handling flaking, someone canceling plans?
Yeah. Respond with playful teasing. Maybe impose some kind of light-hearted penalty, like jokingly say now she owes you dinner or she has to make it up to you somehow.
So acknowledge it, but keep it fun.
Yeah, shows your time's valuable, but without being truly confrontational.
Okay, one thing the material didn't seem to cover was how to handle being called a player, especially if you're maybe less experienced but trying to act confident.
That's right, yeah. The specific excerpts we looked at didn't dive into that particular accusation.
But there was advice on ending things gracefully, sort of avoiding that player label by how you manage the interaction overall.
Yes. The key idea there is don't act like you're instantly in a serious, committed relationship if that's not your intent. Have fun, be clear implicitly, not necessarily saying this is casual, but just enjoy the time without creating false hopes.
So if it wasn't framed as super serious from the start,
Then there's less need for a big, dramatic breakup. It can end more naturally.
and the timing for a first kiss, there's a pretty direct advice there.
Very direct. If there's that mutual connection, that silent moment you're looking at each other, and the thought, should I kiss her, pops into your head, the answer is probably yes.
Go for it.
Yeah, hesitation might read as lack of confidence or interest. That's the perspective.
Learning from past experiences, dating mistakes,
Mhm.
also mentioned briefly.
Yeah, the suggestion is to actually analyze past attempts that didn't work out, look for patterns, things you might be doing wrong, self-reflection as a tool for getting better.
What about when a woman says she has a boyfriend? Does this source say just back off immediately?
Surprisingly, no. The material suggests that doesn't always mean game over. It could be a test, or she might just be mentioning it. The advice is kinda keep interacting, use the CNF stuff, see what happens. She might still chat or give contact info.
Interesting. And putting yourself in situations where women might approach you, what kind of places were suggested?
Places with lots of natural interaction, being a DJ, a teacher, bartender, certain customer service roles. Basically, environments where you interact with many women frequently. More opportunities for practice and connection.
How about handling catcalls or whistles directed at a woman you're with?
The suggestions aim for nonchalant confidence. You could playfully pretend the comment was for you, or just dismiss the other guy's behavior as typical, not worth reacting to.
So don't get drawn in or seem insecure.
Right. And subtly position yourself as above that kind of behavior.
Okay, we've covered a lot of examples. Is there like a basic formula for cocky and funny?
Yes, they boil it down to arrogant comment plus humor. That combo, the confident, slightly arrogant statement delivered with a funny, playful tone, that's the core. The humor films it, makes it okay.
And how do they draw the line between this and just being a jerk?
That's a crucial distinction. It's about using techniques that maybe jerks sometimes use effectively, like teasing, not being too eager, but without the abusive or genuinely mean parts. The humor and playful intent are key. It's about attraction, not actually hurting someone.
Got it. Finally, jealousy was mentioned briefly as maybe a way to rekindle interest.
Yeah, the idea there was if someone you are involved with seems to have lost interest, subtly letting them know you're dating others might re-spark their attraction, using jealousy as a motivator in that specific scenario.
Wow, okay. This has definitely been a deep dive into this specific viewpoint on flirting. So to wrap up, what are the absolute core principles of cocky and funny from these sources?
I'd say it's playful teasing, a foundation of confidence and self-assurance, and focusing on creating attraction rather than just seeking approval.
Yep.
Communicating your own value, your interest, but keeping it light and engaging right from the start.
And for you listening, just a reminder, like we said at the top, we've explored these ideas directly from the material provided. We're not endorsing them, just aiming to give you a clear picture of this particular approach.
Absolutely. Looking at different ideas like this, it can give you insights into communication dynamics, how attraction works or is perceived in different social settings.
So now that you've joined us for this deep dive, maybe think about how these concepts, communication, confidence, playfulness, how they resonate, or maybe even clash with your own view of social interactions. Not just romance, but maybe other areas too.
Right, thinking about the underlying principles.
Which leads us to a final thought for you to mull over. Having heard all this, what's maybe one small, playful thing you can try in your next social interaction? Not to achieve some specific outcome, but just to observe the dynamic, see what happens, what you learn.